Welcome to the Two Robbies podcast, where we go down deep and dirty on every Premier League match day. So make sure you download the show wherever you get your podcast from. I'm Robbie Earle. I've got my mate Robbie Mustoe with me. He's rested and ready to go. And Mr. Mustoe, for this week's menu, we're going to talk about Jurgen Klopp's men and return to winning ways. We're going to talk about Carlo and Frank Lampard reuniting at Stamford Bridge. Has Jose Mourinho thrown another player under the bus? Well, let's start with the 182nd Manchester derby and Manchester United getting the better of Pep's Manchester City in what I thought was a really good Manchester derby, mate.
Yeah, it was a good game. I think United, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the team wanted it more than Manchester City. From the team selection to the desire on the field of play, I didn't think City kind of showed any real sense of urgency. Yes, they had tons of possession. We've seen that before, but their possession, or any team's possession without a lot of penetration is not great. And I think that's the majority of what we saw. You know that Man United on the whole, against good sides this season that come out and play a little bit, I'm thinking of Chelsea, City twice now, and Spurs and others, they're at their best because they're better on the counter-attack. And a different kind of mindset goes into the bigger games, and you've got to take it to the manager and the club that they get it right for these matches. City weren't right, and we'll get into some details, Rob, but there's a few good performances, I thought, for Manchester United. I think Anthony Martial is a player that is improving, and in putting himself around a little bit more and getting more involved in the game and affecting things a little bit more and looking stronger, looking more of a threat, amongst other good performances for Manchester United. So just a strong win, a well-deserved win, just wanted it more, and with a better team.
We've seen Ollie, Rob, over the course of certainly of this season. When he's played big teams, he's generally come up with a plan. He went with the three at the back again, four in midfield, and Fernandes underneath James and Martial. And there was a bit of a clamour for Odion Ighalo maybe to start, but I thought the pace of James and the way they set up that quick counter-attack was an important part of the game. And I almost felt, Rob, at times, United didn't mind City having the ball. It was almost like, let them get a bit comfortable, let them start their passing movements and get people around possession. Because when we win it back and we can break quickly, we're going to have more chances. And in the end, Manchester United had less possession, but way more opportunities to score goals.
Do you know what's funny, Rob? And I don't know whether you picked up on it. The pre-match interview with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was asked a question, at home, are you going to allow Man City kind of the ball, if you like? Are you going to be on the front foot? And he said, no, we're going to be on the front foot. We can't let them play and get into their rhythm. Now, whether he's just kind of playing a game there, or whether he meant that, because they totally
didn't do that.
And it worked out great, and that probably was the best way to manage this game. But when he came out and said, we're going to take it to City, I thought, wow, this is... But sometimes the football of City is such that you can't really add that pressing, and you can't make it the sort of game that you want it to make it. But listen, who cares? United were, I don't say forced, but they were happy to play on the counter-attack, and we've seen that many times before with Dan James and Martial's pace, and defensively very, very good. Harry Maguire, I thought, as the guys in commentary picked out, was excellent. I mean, everything coming in. He was blocking, heading things away. Luke Shaw is in really good form at the moment. Brandon Williams on that left side is a strong, young-looking left side. Wan-Bissaka did a very good job, as you'd expect. And we'll get on to City, Rob. A few things I was really disappointed with, actually, Pep and the City team. But Wan-Bissaka is got
one-on-one with Raheem Sterling.
Well, is he the best in the league at one-on-one defending?
I think there was many better in that case, to the point where Raheem Sterling ended up not really wanting to take him on because he knew he wasn't going to go past him. He kind of ran him a couple of times and just got his body in between and played the ball back. So a huge credit to Wan-Bissaka. So who else I thought did well for the team? Fred and Matic in front of that back four. Matic didn't know how to get his foot to a lot of balls and close a few passing lanes. Fred's getting better on the ball with more confidence. We've seen him sort of express himself a bit more, sort of driving through midfield. I thought those two did a really good job in the early stages of the game as City were trying to dominate possession and cause problems. Yeah, I mean, Bruno Fernandes was quiet. Was quiet in the game. I mean, the goal is brilliant, by the way. It's a brilliant little move, that, isn't it? And you can practice that, Rob. And we've all training
been on
ground
teams.
stuff in it.
Yeah, and we've done it in complicated movements in training, corner kicks or set pieces. And they don't, often when it comes to it, you fluff your
match
chip.
Day, yeah.
But to be fair, I mean, it worked out great.
And quality,
that's really a little bit of quality in Bruno Fernandes with that chip and Martial's finish. Ederson, we'll get on to, had an absolute stinker, absolute nightmare of a game. But full marks to United's coaching staff of trying to be a little bit different and doing things different. And to be fair to Aguero, he actually got quite close because, I mean, that was really cleverly done, quickly done. There's deception involved in it, and the execution was perfect. And it just done Aguero. It didn't over the top there for Martial to score the goal. So, yeah, very good from United's point of view, I thought. Bruno Fernandes isn't always going to be.
It wasn't a day when they had enough possession, did they, to dominate, to get him on the ball and in the areas that he wanted him.
Yeah, that's right, and that's what he thrives at. And to be fair to today, you know, I looked at him in the second half, and he's kind of looking around a little bit, but he's putting the shift in. He's putting the shift in.
Having said that, he was on once or twice. I think Dan James should have played him in a square ball. Martial, when he got through, should have played him in a square ball. He might well have scored. So, you know, as you say, still making those runs, still committed to the team, and obviously just giving the whole place a lift. From City's point of view, Rob, a little bit worrying for Pep.
Well, I'd say more disappointing. I was disappointed with pretty much everything, really. I mean, we said at the start of the show, like, yeah, it felt it was a good derby. Yeah. But I didn't get the sense that Man City were invested in this derby, that they were really rolling their sleeves up. This is a Manchester derby. I thought it's an English phrase, tossed it off a little bit, Rob. I just thought I just biffed it off a little bit. Didn't really want to get involved in another derby game. They got the Champions League, they got to focus on. You know, it's another game Wednesday. I'm just disappointed in the team, the lineup. Bernardo Silva inside and Phil Foden to the outside. And we know that De Bruyne is out injured. Jesus on the bench, David Silva's not there. I just thought they lacked a little bit of hunger, they lacked a little bit of quality. And for Phil Foden to continue playing out there, I didn't get that decision from Pep. I didn't get it. Bernardo Silva has got more penetration, Rob. He can dribble, he can play that final ball more than, at the moment, Phil Foden. So that was strange for me. Defensively, again, Rob, all the way through the game, from the first to the last whistle, any ball going over the top, and Fernandinho and Otamendi looked a big problem. And then Ederson,
I looked at the back four, Rob. I said, as Rebecca asked about the game, you know, Cancelo, Otamendi, Fernandinho and Zinchenko is not a back four. Fernandinho is an outstanding footballer. He's doing a job at centre-back, but he's a better centre midfield player. Otamendi can be a bit of a hothead. He can be a risk. Lucky he didn't give a penalty kick away with the challenge on Fred. And Cancelo and Zinchenko don't fill me with a lot of confidence out there, especially with people with pace who can run past them. So it almost felt a bit of a second-grade kind of back four there. I thought, listen, if you're Man United, you've got to get amongst these today. Yeah, and the goalkeeper. Now, in general, Ederson has done really well. We know he's superb with his kicking, and he's made some big saves. I mean, he had an absolute nightmare. And maybe, you hold your hands up. Yeah. And the first goal, he could have done better. The ball that went under his foot that he got caught out at. Yeah. Of course, the throw in late on for the McTominay finish was a really nice finish from McTominay to see and to slow down time enough to see the ball coming across and get, I can see the goalie. You know what? I think this is on for first time. He executes it beautifully. But what a game from Ederson. And, you marry that, Rob. So marry a nightmare from your goalkeeper. You marry a back four that's not the proper back four and looks vulnerable every single time. You marry into that a Phil Foden that playing out of position I thought was a miss, and you marry in Raheem Sterling, who's just off form, who's just struggling to get back to his very best. Aguero got injured. It was just, I thought, 3 or 4 things, and also wrap that up for City and a lack of real hunger and desire to go and win a derby. And I thought they were thoroughly beaten, deserved to be beaten, and again, disappointed with that kind of effort and application for Manchester City. Kevin De Bruyne as well. That's a big loss. You've got somebody of his ability, of his creativity and penetration. He only needs to pick a ball up and see a run, and all of a sudden it can be different. But credit has to go to Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And it was interesting to hear him after the game, Rob, talking about the tactics and the way that they got the win.
If you've turned a corner of late with results, how much does they feel like more than 3 points?
Well, of course, it's a derby. The fans love it. The players love it. It's sometimes you can say it's only 3 points, but for our players to to beat a team as Man City with the problems that we've had as well is fantastic. So I'm just delighted for them. We play against an absolute top team, and of course, we had to defend and they had possession, but we're delighted with the outcome.
You know what, Rob? When you think about how it's going for him now, I do think of recruitment, and we know that everybody's talked about Bruno Fernandes, and he was a really good player, but even other players. Dan James was lively again today. You know, Wan-Bissaka was a big call to bring in a young fullback from Crystal Palace. Harry Maguire was excellent today. So the signings that have come in, you know, have all done well, and that's really good. And I was reading something, Rob, really interesting. Can't remember which newspaper it was now, a few days ago, basically saying that they've got, in some ways, like a transfer committee. There's a bunch of people that are involved in the future recruitment of Manchester United, and it's not necessarily a sporting director. We know they haven't gone down that road, but there's certain people on this committee, if you like, that are really trying to button down and do a better job, because you have to look at what money they've wasted on star players in the past. And maybe this is the start of, you know, some smart, some sensible. Sometimes players are going to be really expensive, and Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire. But others have been brought in as well. It's good work, and that is so important, as we know, with any football club, who they bring in and the fees that they pay. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is winning people over, he's winning fans over, and this was another really good day for him. And
it's getting the right mix. It's getting a few star players, Fernandes and that, but your Dan James is just as important, and your Wan-Bissakas, who maybe not coming from bigger clubs, but come in and do a job. And it was interesting, Rob, because we were talking, Rebecca was talking after the game. We didn't have a lot of time, unfortunately, to go about the game. But she was saying, is this one of the best feelings we've had about United for a while? And I was sort of, I know what you mean, but we've got to hold fire. But
I think we've got to hold fire.
In terms of where we are and what's coming up, I said, Ollie, the talk of Poch has gone away. Ollie's deserved that. He's in the spot. He's doing a good job. They're unbeaten in 10 now, I think it is, and clean sheets. Plenty of clean sheets. He's in charge of the role. Recruitment, as you say, is going to be important with the summer. But there are signs that things are starting to come together. There are signs that there's a bit of unity back. I thought you mentioned Anthony Martial. I thought he was more invested in the team than I've seen him for a while, Rob. The celebrations, the challenges, a couple of headers he went into. I saw Harry Maguire, as you say, putting his head in, you know, having a go with one or two of his teammates to make sure they hung on to the 1-0 before they got the second goal. Just feels as though the whole club's starting to pull together and tighten a little bit after years when we haven't quite seen this at United.
The most important part of that is Martial, you talk about. And, you know, we've gone back and forth over a few seasons now about how good he could be, what does he need to do. And I think probably everybody would agree, from fans to the manager, that he needs to show, I guess, more personality, Rob. More personality, like more investment, like you said, into the team. A bit more aggression, get involved in the game a little bit more. Be a striker, be in the central area. Again, he's got, in recent games, he's getting goals, plenty of goals now. He seems to have taken his game to another level. Remember when Rashford did that, Rob? And I remember calling out Martial, come on, you now. You've got to show everybody that you can improve. And he's doing it. He's doing it. And this is all that Marcus Rashford. It's all that Paul Pogba. Let's talk about that Pogba is probably going to get his way and will probably leave the club in the summer. I think when you look at what other players have done, Bruno Fernandes in particular, and there's talk of Jadon Sancho, amongst others, to come into the club they could use that money from Pogba. It starts to feel more feasible that he could leave the football club. But no, Martial is the player that I wasn't sure about, and I was starting to really cool on him just before this recent run. Now, next thing for him, of course, is to be consistent, Rob, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Absolutely. He's got to start delivering week in, week out.
Week in, week out.
And you know what you're going to get from him. But signs looking good. Ollie's on a decent run.
Can I just ask you one more question on that, Rob, before we move on? Because you just sort of talking about Pochettino before, and we've always been very strong on what the club should do. You're saying that it's quieted now on Mauricio Pochettino.
It seems to have quietened, yeah.
Do you still feel that would be the right call to bring Pochettino in the summer, if possible? Would you do that still?
I would, because I'm a Poch. I like Poch. Yeah, I like what he does. I like the way he works. But I have absolutely no problem with Ollie. He's deserved the opportunity. Yeah. If you believe in him and things are going in a positive direction, you've got to give him that chance. But personally, Rob, if I was Ed Woodward, it's a big decision. It's a harsh decision. But I would get Pochettino in.
Yeah, I mean, if United can finish in the top 4 spots, then there's no, we'll feel totally justified and to continue. And nobody would have a problem with that because it's fair play. But I'm with you. I think a top-class manager's available.
Yeah.
But listen, he's doing a great job right now, and we should praise him for today.
Yeah,
another big performance in a big game. He's been getting it done in those big matches. Well done.
Let's move it on, Mr. Musto, to Turf Moor. Yesterday, game of 2 halves. Burnley played as you'd expected, in good form, dominated play, dominated the wide areas, won knockdowns, were head and shoulders the best team in the first half. We had a substitute change of system in the second half. Spurs were better. Got a goal through Dele Alli's 50th Premier League goal of his career with a penalty kick. And then Spurs, in fairness, gave a good account of themselves. Maybe could have nicked it, but it ended up 1 each. But, Mr. Musto, the headline of the day was Jose Mourinho and his sort of penchant for buses. He either has them parking on the pitch or he's chucking players under it off the pitch. Tanguy and Ndombele obviously felt the wrath of Jose Mourinho, taken off at half-time, and Mourinho had some really harsh words to say about him. I mean, should we talk about the game first and then get to Mourinho? In terms of the game, how did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, lots of changes, wasn't there? Lots of changes. We know that they've got Leipzig coming up in the Champions League. They're 1-0 down from that. I mean, it's just so disjointed at the moment. It looks disjointed. It feels disjointed. And of course, it's obvious that with so many changes and his style change, which is huge for Spurs, that was so different under Pochettino, with it end up being from a high-energy pressing game to a very much possession-based. It's very different now. And in some ways, it's tough to watch. The system, the wing-back system, didn't work very well. He made those substitutions at half-time, absolutely right. Giovanni Lo Celso, who's a good player, made a big difference coming on. And Lucas as well. And they kind of got what... When you don't really focus on one game, you don't try and put your best team out there. They didn't deserve to win the game. Do you think, Rob, just like thinking ahead and thinking what he's trying to do, he's obviously trying to rest some players. And he did say, we'll get to hear from Jose soon, but he talked about players being tired. We know the Champions League is coming up. Shouldn't he? I mean, again, the tiredness thing is tough for us to gauge that kind of reality. Isn't it more important for him to finish 4th in the top flight or get 4th and 5th in the Champions League to try and qualify for next season instead of making lots of changes?
Well, there's certainly no guarantee you go to Leipzig and win, or there's certainly no guarantee of the quality of teams in the Champions League who are going to make it to the final and win it. So you would expect a top 4 finish, and they'd have to say top 4 now because we don't know what the City situation is going to be, to get into those top 4 spots.
Is he given up on the top 4, Rob? It feels like he's... It's a lot of
what it feels like to me, Rob? He's given up on the season. I keep hearing, I can't wait till next July. I mean, hold on a minute. They were in the FA Cup before then. Now they're out of that. They had a chance for a top 4. They're still in the Champions League. Why are we right? Why is it all of a sudden we were just writing this season off? And listen, Robert, I understand that he's struggling. They've struggled with no Son and no Kane. We know that. But, he's now chucking players under the bus as he was with Ndombele. It's another player who you pretty much can write off. It looks like he's not going to be. Chud Parrott, the centre forward, he's written him off, not good enough. It's almost like he's down to bare bones, and he ain't really helping himself.
No, I mean, I think, did you make the point today that United with Rashford and Pogba missing, you never hear him moan about it. They've just beat the champions at home, 2-0. Yet all we hear is players being missing and players being tired. Now, we, of course, remember right at the start, and he said it many times since, that he likes this squad. He's very happy. It doesn't, even, was it like last week, Robbie said that this doesn't need a lot of work. A lot of work on the squad. Maybe 2 or 3 players will come in. The club profile isn't that to come and buy a lot of players. And he's happy with that. I think we do this
usually, Robbie Musto. Woo! When people are talking.
The Pinocchio nose coming out. This all could be a tactic to try and get more money from Daniel Levy. But you're right, and let's listen to this because it's really interesting. This, and I'll give you my take afterwards. But of course, Tanguy Ndombele was the player that was dragged off at half-time, and Jose was asked about it, and here's what he said about his midfield player.
The midfielder that you're not happy with, how does he get to the level that he needs to, that you need from him?
I hope that he uses every minute on the pitch and every minute knowing what the Premier League is. to improve. There are many fantastic players that in first seasons in new countries, for different reasons, they struggle. There are many examples of it. So he's a player with a great talent, and he has to know that he has to do much better, and he has to know that I cannot keep giving him opportunities to play, because the team is more important than the players, and the players they must be on the pitch as consequence of their work, as consequence of their performance. This is a performance level football.
Mr. Mustoe, if you were Tanguy Ndombele, what would you be thinking right now?
Well, this is the fascinating part. This is the fascinating part because, you know, you talked about it on air and sort of saying that modern management isn't the way that we see from managers, and I totally agree. But we have seen this before from him. It's old
Jose.
It's old Jose. It's one of two reasons for me, Rob. It's one of two reasons. The first reason, to give the player a public kick up the backside, to say he wants more, to publicly humiliate him, to get people talking so he understands it, he hears it from a manager in a public forum, to try and get more out of him. I remember right at the start, back with Joe Cole for Chelsea, that came into the team under Jose and was brilliant, and his manager hammered him after the game multiple times. I'm thinking, wow. Now that, he could argue, and Chelsea fans might argue, and other teams that he's been with, that this style does, in some cases, give the player the kick up the backside that they want, and they go on and improve. That's the first angle, right? The second one is that he never fancied him. Never fancied him. When he first came in the job, I said that he's not his type. He's languid. He's not a worker. He's not a box-to-box guy. Talented and skillful. And is this kind of just more of a trying to tell people and garner support from the fans that, listen, guys, I don't like him. He's thinking, I don't like this player, but I want you. He's a record signing.
$79 million.
Really high. But he wants everybody else to get on his page. He wants everybody else to drink the same things that Jose's drinking about this player. Listen, I'm going to try and sell him, everybody, and I'm going to tell you now, and you've got to get with me. And it puts pressure on the player that he might not play well. Is he trying to do that? That's the two things, the two reasons why you would say it. What do you think on those two angles of why?
I hear the angles. The Joe Cole's a good example. He tried it with Eden Hazard later. He tried it at Real Madrid. He's tried it at Manchester United latterly. Old management. 2000s might have worked back in the day. In our day, maybe players would be like, right, I'll show him. Players nowadays, Rob, don't react in the same way. You've got to become a modern man. Manage people, manage stars, manage your group. This isn't the way. And these other Tottenham players where I think, look at that and think, if he chucks him under the bus, what's he going to do to me next? I don't think it helps the football club.
Right.
That's my point in terms of, you know, him trying to get everybody on his page and doing it the old Jose way. $79 million they paid for a footballer who we've seen moments of talent.
Yes,
but
very talented.
Jose Mourinho, Rob, has got to get the best out of him. If he's not fit enough, do some work with the fitness. In 2 weeks, you don't play in my team, I'll get you fit, if you're fit enough. If you're good enough on the ball, which we've seen moments of, you don't pay $79 million for an international French footballer to go publicly and have a go at him, a bit like you're scolding a child and then the child will do better. These are grown men. These are international footballers. Treat them with a little bit more respect. And by the way, I don't mind listening if you want to have those harsh conversations. Have them in your office. Shut the door. As two men, have a straight talk and let him know what...
Yeah, so why? Yeah, I totally agree. That's the way they should be done in modern management. But why is he doing it? Does he want to sell him, Rob? Is he trying to get people... Is he trying to persuade people?
It could be a message to the ownership. It could be a message to the ownership. I don't fancy him, you've got to get him out. You might have paid $79 million, I wouldn't. Might be a message there. It might be a message to the rest of the dressing room, this is how it works. I think Jose Mourinho is slipping back to normality. We've seen happy, we've seen smiley, we've seen jokey, we've seen hugging ball boys, we've seen results starting to go the wrong way, we've seen him getting knocked out of cup competitions. I'm not sure if if the leopard has changed its spots. I'm not sure if he's going back to type, to what he is, to the 2004 guy who hammers players, who were grown players, who were more men in a different era, who would react the way he wanted. I think that's his style of management. We've seen Pep, he's a coach, he gets his arm around in coaches. Klopp's a hugger. Poch was a football teacher of things. When they think to Jose, his type is to hammer people and hope that he gets the right response and they come back and I'll show you. A bit of the you against the world scenario. He can get that within his group.
Do you know what really kind of I found interesting and disappointing ultimately, Rob? Is that he was desperate to get this out. The interviewer asked him the question, and I had to rewind it because I found it incredibly funny. His acting skills were amazing.
I didn't want to tell. I can't say anything.
Oh, he said, "Don't ask me to tell." Yeah. And he pulled little face, his little cheeks, and don't ask me to tell. He was desperate to get out there, and that's why I asked you the question: why? Yeah. Why is he doing this? Because he was desperate to get out there about his midfield players, about Ndombele. It's like, come on, mate. We've seen it.
This guy, and you say he's very, very clever. Before the game,
yes,
Rob, I don't know if you saw the interview.
He's got motive to everything.
You saw the interview. A guy asked him one question, he answered and started to walk off, and the reporter says, "Oh, can I ask you one?" He asked him one more and walked off. Didn't want to talk then, didn't want to use the media, didn't want to say anything. After the game, can't wait to use the media to get his message out there. The guy went fishing. The guy just threw him an easy one, Rob. Like, what did you think changed for us? He could have totally put this to bed. He could have said, we didn't play very well, I made changes at half-time, we looked a lot better, shape was better, we're in good shape to go to Leipzig. No one would be talking about Jose Mourinho, nobody talking about Ndombele. He could still be having those conversations with Ndombele privately, but this wouldn't be a headline. All of a sudden he's put another, I think, negative focus on his football club. They go out against Leipzig, they struggle to make the top four, Rob. You've got to start to say, well, why did Spurs make this change? Isn't he the guy who's supposed to be taking them to another level, getting them over the line in situations? Things look like they're as bad as they were with Poch, or even worse.
Yeah, he would argue, Rob, I'm assuming, that this is going to be transitional, and to get a Jose team is going to take a little bit more time. It's going to take a pre-season, take a few more players. What I would say, and I usually say this every single time we talk about Spurs, but I'll say it again. There's some good ingredients, Robbie.
Some very good ingredients. There's
some good ingredients in that team. We haven't seen the best of them yet, but Lo Celso, he's really improved quickly. Bergwijn shows flashes of really good play. Ndombele, for me, does some really good things at certain times. There's some, without Kane, without Son, you've got Dele Alli there as well. Tanganga looks like a good young player coming through. There's some good parts to this team. And, he's got to figure out all the ingredients and throw them all together. I mean, we're talking about next season now. That's kind of how I feel that he's planning on that. But there are some good players there. And, he shouldn't get away with this because of what he said before. And because there are some good players there. And he's got to get them together whenever that is, as quick as possible. But probably he's thinking for next season to have a real good run at it. Because, let's face it, Rob, he's going to be judged next season.
After he's had some of his own players. But do you know what, Rob? And I might be wrong. I just get the feeling like some of the players are like not having him.
Well, I don't know about that yet. I don't know about that yet.
I don't know, mate. I just don't think he's enamouring himself to some of them. And maybe he doesn't care. Maybe he doesn't want them. Well,
it goes back to your point about the style and his Delhi. Is he going to be okay being dragged off and being a little bit humiliated? Is he going to be okay with that? We know that Ndombele, we don't know how he's going to react, but probably not great. Modern day footballers, goes back to his style and whether he can make it work. This job is definitive, in my opinion, for Jose Mourinho. This job is definitive. This is everything for me. On the way that I look at him, the way that his legacy is for me. This job was a good job for him. It wasn't a dead easy to win big stuff. We know that, but show us. You're going to have some time, you're going to have some money, you've got some good players, you've got great facilities in your training ground, in your stadium. Show us. And if he doesn't do it, then, wow, you weren't that special after all.
Let's move it on to Stamford Bridge, Mr. Musto. So, player who's turned manager under Jose, beat Jose twice this year, came up against a former manager, Frank Lampard, and Chelsea faced Carlo Ancelotti's Everton. And I thought this one would be a tight one. I almost thought it might be a scoring draw with both these teams, but turned out to be anything but. Chelsea winning 4-0, mate, and making a little bit of a statement against a really flat Everton team that had been in decent form.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. And I continue to enjoy Frank Lampard's role at this football club.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I mean, who doesn't love seeing young players? I looked at the bench when the team like, wow, who's he? Who's that? I haven't seen much of him, and it's just brilliant. I mean, they're players that were out. You look at the midfield players that couldn't play in this suspended. Jorginho, you had N'Golo Kante out. Mateo Kovacic, who's been brilliant. Loftus-Cheek, of course, a striker, and Tammy Abraham is out as well. And yet, he throws his side out there. It was kind of a mixture of experience. You had a young midfield. You have experienced front three that look lively. He's putting his stamp on this team, Rob, and the Kepa decision as well to bring him back now. I'm thinking, you know what he's doing? He's the young rookie manager in loads of ways, of course. And it's like I am going to, part of my job this year is to get the experienced players and the whole squad to know who the boss is. I'm the boss, and I'll make big decisions. He's done that all the way through, Rob. All the way through, big decisions on certain players. And the Kepa is another example of, I'm going to slap your wrists. I don't like your attitude. You haven't been playing well, and I'm going to sit you on the bench for not 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it was, Rob. Was it 3 or 4 games?
4 games, 6 weeks before out the
So good for Frank Lampard. He's still getting a tune out of all the players. There's no disgruntled Pedros or Willians.
He's not chucking them under the bus, though, Rob, in the manner.
He's not chucking under the bus.
Like Jose does.
Really good, Rob. And, you know, some lovely football. Really good, clean football. Chelsea fans are enjoying the style of football. He's playing out, you know, not crazy out from the back, but it's a lovely brand of football. And Billy Gilmour, my friend. Limonette.
I was going to say, 18 years of age.
Wow.
Stop.
Wow. Very interesting. I mean, very interesting.
You shouldn't be that good, that confident, that comfortable at 18 years of age, Rob. You should be nervous and unsure and wow, this kid looks like not only a great footballer but a great football brain.
Well, he's obviously small in stature. Okay, so when I saw him today, I'm like, wow, okay, holding role. It's a really important role in terms of playmaking. We know that Jorginho has been brilliant at that. But there's an important defensive part as well, which I suppose over time, Rob, we'll figure out how that goes with him. But in terms of getting on the ball, in terms of energy, in terms of showing for every single time it was around him and being brave enough to get on the ball, manoeuvring the ball, playing lovely through passes, accurate passes. I mean, it was very, very good. Very, very impressive. Wow. I mean, we've seen little bits of him.
And probably, maybe going back, but like a little Dutch number 10 or Spanish little player or a Croatian clever little footballer. He looks like one of them with great football brain, has the ball, comfortable in possession, knows where to be on the pitch, just like those natural instincts that you often see in foreign players and sometimes don't see in British or English players. Just looks to have a real command of all situations. And I talked about, you know, that role is a difficult role, central midfield in the Premier League nowadays. You've got to know when to protect the back four, when to maybe get across and get some cover, maybe double down in with your midfield player to win the ball back, when to look forward, when to play. You know, he makes those decisions just so naturally.
It's a natural football brain.
That's special.
Yeah, and this youth movement, I got to be honest, I love it more than anything else. I'd love to be a season ticket holder right now at Chelsea just to see the development. And you're seeing, even this season, Mason Mount gets his goal, was bright, was lively. He's kind of gone again a little bit, isn't he? Because he had a quiet period where he was struggling a little bit, taken out the side, but he's gone again. He's looking bright, he gets a really good goal. And all these young players, Tomori as well, one of those, of course Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, they're going to benefit, Rob, so much, aren't they, from this season of playing all these minutes and of getting all this experience and improving even more and more, which we're seeing with the young players now at the club. It's just a brave policy from the managers, in some ways forced with the transfer ban at the start of the season. But I think there's going to be long-term benefits now with some of these young players. Billy Gilmour being the latest one that will benefit so much, Rob, if the more minutes he can play now to the end of the season, just going forward and trying to improve. So it's... You know, it's just really good
as well to Jose, who we said has been the special one, great manager and won so much silverware. And Frank, I look at Billy Gilmour and look at Oliver Skipp. Both played, I think, in the cup midweek, and then Skipp comes off and he talks about him being tired and that. When you've got a manager like Frank who's backing Billy Gilmour, who wants him to succeed, who wants him to go out there, who's giving him every opportunity to show what he can do, to me that's modern management. That's what the modern player wants, expects, needs to be the best that they can be. I looked today, and you made the same point. I looked today, who wasn't playing? Kante was injured. Jorginho Kovacic, Tammy Abraham injured, Pulisic injured, Hudson-Odoi coming back.
Forget about the other young players.
Never once did we hear Frank say, I'm missing a lot of my star players. He got on with it. He got on with it, and his team got on with it, and his team managed and played in a different way, and give themselves now a great opportunity. I know they've got games to come, but gives an opportunity of finishing those top 4, if not 5 spaces and getting that Champions League football. Yeah,
there's going to be a race for that, of course, from teams below Chelsea. But, I mean, I just really impressed today. Disappointed with Everton, Rob. I want to talk Everton before we move on. And we know that Carlo Ancelotti is a legend and he's been super successful. But we can be critical, respectfully critical.
Today.
They got battered today, Rob, in midfield. The 4-4-2 shape. I just expected at some point for something to change because the 3 midfield players of Chelsea.
Yeah, so he might drop Richarlison in at least and get a shape and leave one up front. Or he did go to a bit of a diamond just before half time. Then he did
reverted back at the start of the second half.
Put Theo out one side and had Siggy out the other. And
why didn't he change, Rob? Our listeners, like, why? When you could see what was going on with the two. I mean, Andre Gomez he's done great to come back from injury, but he's not a mobile type. He's not really. And Tom Davies is still young and he's learning that role. They needed help in there, and he didn't affect it. I just don't understand why it wasn't. I know the goals came quite early.
Is he one of them who totally believes in what he does and
doesn't want to change anything?
Doesn't want to change. Like, the players are trained in a certain way. We play a certain way. It's simple. Maybe we do that, but they just looked really off today. And the problem they've got now is other teams are going to see that and say, just stick an extra man in midfield against that system, and it's going to stop them getting any control in the middle of the park.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just disappointing. I was just surprised. That part mainly, really. Just the tactical side of things. I mean, they weren't
great. It wasn't a good day, was it, for them?
It wasn't a good day for them, but I just thought, wow, it looked like an area that they were getting
it looked more like a Marco Silva team than a Carlo Ancelotti team, I have to say. Not a good day for Everton, but really, really good day for Chelsea. Moving on, Mr. Musto, to the champions-elect, we'll call it. Now only needs 6 points after United beat City. Liverpool, with a little scare to start off with, but got the job done in the end. How did you see this one? Didn't quite go maybe as to plan for Jurgen Klopp.
I thought I watched you and Carl on the show, and I was more positive than you two were. I thought they put a lot into it, Rob. I thought they put a lot more normal kind of effort and urgency in it, as you'd expect at home at Anfield. Yeah, it wasn't always super slick in the final third. I think that's going to take a little bit of time to find that real groove again. But at least the energy was back again. At least there was some good work from the midfield players. When Alden was back at it, the front players were trying harder, working harder. And Jurgen Klopp was back to his craziness on the sideline that we didn't see, of course, in that game against Watford. So I kind of got what we expected, Rob. And I wasn't disappointed in Liverpool. Were you a little disappointed in the way that they played?
Not so much disappointed. I maybe expected a little more, just based on what I'd read, what I thought was coming this week. Like we're back to Anfield, we'll get back to our ways. I just expected maybe a little bit more intensity, Rob, because that's when I think they go to another level. And I thought
their intensity was back up again. I'm not saying it was back to mega levels, but it was back a massive chunk compared to Watford.
I just thought that Bournemouth on another day might have got goals, and maybe James Milner apart would have ended up with a draw. I just felt that it was quiet in the stadium for a while, and I'm not quite sure what that was. I don't know if everybody was feeling it a little bit on the pitch and off it. Obviously, once they got the goals back, they got in a better position. But I never felt that comfortable for Liverpool during the game. And
I agree with that. I'll agree with that a little bit, Rob, because defensively they're not quite as secure. They don't quite look as secure for whatever reason.
Gomez had I thought a bit of an off day, not quite at his best. Van Dijk similarly, although it's hard to criticise what he's done over the season, but just not quite looking as assured as they were.
Yeah, I thought it was decent, to be honest. I thought it was a decent performance. So that the push in the back, I want to talk about that because I think we're a little bit different on that. I don't know. I saw Carl's take was he didn't think it was clear and obvious error. What did you think?
I thought it was a foul.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was a foul.
I thought it was a clear error. There's a push that you can nudge somebody in.
Yeah.
My view of it was how far Gomez went away from the ball after he'd been pushed. Now, Carl's view was that he probably overextended that and made it even worse.
Maybe.
But there was a shoulder in the back from Callum Wilson that Gomez had the ball under his control.
Was it a hand or an arm? Was it like a hot? He pushed him away.
Arm and shoulder, he pushed in and then extended his hand away. I thought it was a foul.
I thought it was a foul.
But listen, it didn't happen. They
didn't
scored
matter.
the goal, and after that, Liverpool had an uphill battle. It didn't, in the end, cause Liverpool too much problems because they got all 3 points. But on that one, I did actually think it was a foul. But it's one of those that, sometimes goes either way. And the way things were going against Liverpool, at least they had the ability and maybe the character intensity to come back into the game. Just want to talk about a certain player. James Milner, Robbie Mustoe. James Milner.
Yeah.
I mean, what a career this guy's had.
Yeah, and I saw the bit that you showed on our air, and that's a really good catch from our tape room again, that do an incredible job of just finding little bits, or you guys might have found it, I don't know, but it's just nice to see that. I mean, that's pretty unusual to see that's real, that's on the field, and it gives you a huge insight into what he's all about, James Milner, apart from his performance and apart from clearing the ball off the line, was a brilliant bit of just good play, being defensively minded there. But just his influence on the team, and we've heard this before from Jurgen Klopp.
That you want him around the dressing room, don't you?
You want him around. He said he talks more than anybody else pretty much in that dressing room. He's so important because he's won before. He's been there before. He's done it at other clubs and in other managers. And to see him going around the team and reminding them of their responsibilities and the work ethic and the pressing and everything else he talked about, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was great to see that, and it more than what we can say to anybody who's listening. There,
just listen and watch. And
it was great.
Do you know the other thing that stood out there? Not just what he said and the way he said it, but the way the players were listening and taking it in, Rob. That shows the respect and the standing he's got in that dressing room. It was like a manager talking to players, where the gaffer's talking, I've got to listen. Yeah. And then he still comes up with a brilliant moment, where they played left back, right back, centre midfield, right side, wide, does a job, understands his role, does it with a minimum of fuss, and he's one of those players. If I'm Jurgen Klopp, I'm getting him on my staff when his playing days are over.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Rob, if people didn't see it, it was pre-game, wasn't it? It was in a little huddle of players in a stretching, and he was kind of a little pep talk to about how many was there? 8? 5 or 6 players, something like that.
Probably 10 players. It was most of the players, most of the guys who were starting. Yeah,
the cameras got in there, and the microphone picked up what he was saying. So that's what we were talking about, and that's what was impressive of being a leader. And it was good to see. And I thought Liverpool were good. I thought they were good.
Getting closer, Mr. Musk. 6 points now, isn't it?
Gosh, is it?
Got 6 more points. Yeah. Apparently, if City lose, because City have got 2 more games before
if they lose
Liverpool
both of them,
play, they could actually win it without playing again, which would be a little bit strange. But eventually that 30-year wait seems like it is going to come over. Let's have a quick roundup of a few other games, mate, from the weekend. Arsenal 1, West Ham United 0. Alexander Lacazette coming on as a second-half sub for Nketiah and getting the goal. It wasn't a brilliant performance by Arsenal, but got the job done against a West Ham team that were desperate for points. So 3 points that gives them a chance to close that gap on the Champions League spots. They sit 9th at the moment, Arsenal, so still a bit of work to do. Teams ahead of them. Crystal Palace 1, Watford 0. Jordan Ayew amongst the goals, a game for Crystal Palace. Good goal for him. Sheffield United. Word on Sheffield United, sitting 7th in the table.
7th, yeah.
I mean, another win, another clean sheet, just outstanding, really. 2 promoted teams. Norwich came up as champions and have struggled to really get any kind of form going over the course of the season. Sheffield United, it's just been the opposite case.
Yeah, and maybe a little indication to Championship teams of what you need to be in the Premier League, and you need to be tough, you need to be strong, you need to be physical, and and Norwich aren't those things. They're a lovely footballing side, and they were brilliant last year in the Championship. And there's been times where we've really enjoyed watching them play and got some decent results against good sides. But look at the difference when you got some real physicality, you got some drive, you got some energy, you got some size. with some other good football as well. And what they're doing is remarkable. And maybe a weekend with just kind of continuation of results that we've seen in the past. Norwich losing at, of course, Sheffield United. Norwich, Watford again, not finding a way to win. And Brighton drawing away at Wolves.
0-0 at Wolves, great game.
So and Newcastle United winning away from home.
Tough down there now. 3 from 6 now, isn't it? Down at the bottom, I think. Looks like 3 from 6, Yeah,
it looks like it. I mean, and those
a little bit of a gap now, 5-point gap.
Yeah, it is, and it's going to be a fight right to the end, And I still think Villa are next favourites for me to go down. I mean, on their second bottom right now. Norwich City won't recover from that. And then after that, that last spot between the West Hams and Brightons and Watfords is going to be great, but not a big change in the results of the teams down there. And we know that Brighton and West Ham have got nightmare games coming up, difficult run. So that's going to be the fun thing to watch. I mean, Liverpool, the next couple of weeks is going to be all done and dusted. We are going to get a good race for the European spots, of course.
Yeah, the 4 spots of race.
And the relegation is going to be...
Staying in the league, is going to be important down there for the bottom of the teams. Right, we get to the underappreciated performance of the week, Mr. Muscle. I'm going to let you go first, and yours is a man who probably had fell out with his manager over the last week or two, but came good at the weekend.
He scored the winning goal. He's 22 years of age. He's a French player with a lot of talent. Alain Saint-Maximin is one of those players, Rob, that's going to frustrate the manager. And we know he's already doing that. Yeah. But when I say underappreciated, I don't know whether everybody appreciates his actual ability and his talent. And it can be a little inconsistent. And he's going to be a pain in the backside to his manager. And he's probably going to get a few injuries. But he's a good player, Rob. There was talk, I can't think now who it was, but there's a big club that's apparently studying him, scouting him to maybe go to a big club. He's got that sort of talent. It's just the baggage of his... whether it's his attitude, his training, or whatever that is. I mean, he's only 22.
Yeah, he's young, so...
He's young to try and mould, but he's got a lot of talent. And he got the winning goal. It's a time to give him a shout in our show, Rob, and say that underappreciated, maybe. Watch out for this guy. I think he could be a star player over the next few years in the league.
Well, I'm going to hone in on an underappreciated man at our team that I think slightly underappreciated, Sheffield United. Dean Henderson, Robin, goalkeeper at Sheffield United. He's on loan from Manchester United. He has gone on record as saying he'll only go back to United if he's going to be the number 1, which might be a challenge to David De Gea, who's not been in great form. But a young English goalkeeper who's
he's 22,
pushing Jordan Pickford now for the first team spot. 10 clean sheets this season. He's been in good form. He's good size, got presence about him, came up with a couple of really big saves in the game against Norwich to keep the clean sheet and for Sheffield United to win that game. Dean Henderson could just be one that, come the Euros, Robbie Mustoe, could find himself as right in the frame for England. And maybe next season, if things went to plan for him, could be Manchester United's number 1 as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting picks both of us, Rob, because both 22, both young players. And when we wrap up the season a little later in May, I think we'll look back at this season, Rob, and young players and how it's been quite a big season for young players and managers and clubs trusting young players as maybe the future. You're seeing it with Chelsea that are almost, by the way, was there 5 academy products involved or on the bench today, almost trying to make their own team, create their own team. And that maybe is something that other teams you see. Arsenal are starting to do it this season as well. Some of the players coming through, Chelsea, of course. So, I think a couple of good picks, a couple of players that we might see a lot more of over the coming years in the Premier League.
OK, my friend, I think we're going to have to call it time there after a busy weekend of Premier League football. So that's it on a weekend when Liverpool got back to winning ways and the city of Manchester is all red as United won the big derby. Look out for our Euro podcast on Thursday, March the 12th. When we'll review the games. The Spurs take on Leipzig and Liverpool host Atletico Madrid. Both start a goal down with work to do. But for now, I'm Earl. He's Mustoe together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for listening. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.